Hey, what's going on, beautiful jellyfish? It's Tracy. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of time out of your day to hang out with me. I do have the kittens in here with me, so I don't really know how this is gonna work, so we'll kind of play it by ear. So if you hear weird noises or anything or weird jumps like that, that is Leia. She likes to go under my monitor and touch my keyboard. Okay, sorry about that. I just kicked Leia out of my office. Zelda's actually like underneath the chair right now. Like she's right behind me. She really is obsessed with my chair, which is not great because I need to be the one to use it, but she might leave. So anyways, oh, can you see her little head? Yep, that's her little head. Stick it out. Nope, that's not her head. Do you want to be on camera? Do you want to show your beautiful little face? Say hi, I'm Zelda, and I'm so cute. She likes to just be with me, and she likes to kind of just sit here and just kind of like chill. She's definitely the more chill cat in some ways. Okay, anyways, so today we're going to be talking about EDH Cards Worth the Money Part 5, and the reason that I decided to film this video on my channel is because I think when you're someone who is not maybe sure if a card is worth the cost, and to be honest, some of these cards are even just a little bit more than $1. Some of these are around like a $5 card and stuff, but some people just don't know, is that card really worth it? And I think that's a very fair thing to do. And sometimes I'm even skeptical to be like, is this higher card that's expensive, like is that card worth the money necessarily? So this is part 5. I've done 4 other parts, which I will list in the down bar below. Is that the down bar? I don't even know. I always call it the down bar, but I feel like that's like the wrong word. I have no idea. Anyways, whatever that like thing is where I leave things. Anyways, it's cool. So let's hop into it. So the first card that I want to talk about is, this card is jumped up in price. This card, to be honest, really needs a reprint, and that is Thrasios, Triton Hero. This is one of those cards that I can totally understand people being like, why this card is ridiculously expensive, and it is. I don't know why this card, to be honest, is so insanely expensive as it is. I think the price point of this, like this card's like $50, which is, to be honest, a little bit insane. But with that being said, I do think that this card is really strong. You can partner this with any of the other commanders, which I think is really cool. So if you were kind of going for a sort of partner themed deck, I do think Thrasios is a really good card to include. And I feel like some people are like, oh, sorry about the cat descriptions, I fully kicked them out, so they are not going to be bothering us. If anything, they might cry at the door because they are begging to be let back in, but I can't have them in here when I'm filming because they are very disruptive. They're super cute. They're kittens. They like don't know any better, but they're just disruptive. So anyways, Thrasios. I like that because you can pair it with like any of the other partner commanders, which is really good. I actually have this card in Merfolk because it's a Merfolk, and I do really enjoy it for the uptick ability, for the 4 ability where you pay 4, you scry 1, reveal it. If it's a land, it's just battlefield, otherwise you draw a card. It is kind of a bit of mana, but what I like about this is it's only 2 mana to cast, so I feel like it kind of balances out. Also, I do think that this works really well in Merfolk builds because, to be honest, in my Merfolk deck, I really don't have a lot of stuff that's high converted mana cost. Like, the majority of Merfolk are like 3, maybe 4 mana, so on some are 2 like this, so I don't really find the converted mana cost being a thing. So if you are building a Merfolk deck, I would definitely include Thrasios on this list, and you're doing the green-blue color combination. I think that's a really good thing to include, and I think if you were considering building this as one of the partner commanders, it's definitely really good. I like that, again, it's 2 mana, so if you do have this as a commander, it's pretty easy to cast this card again because it's only 2 mana, and the commander text is only 2 as it goes up, so I think it kind of works itself out. Like, it's not too much mana. It just gives you a little bit of card advantage, you know, gets you lands. It just kind of like does a lot of different things that you really like it to, so I do really enjoy Thrasios a lot. Do think that it needs a reprint though, because $52 is a little bit insane. I just think it's because it's only been printed once. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's only been printed once. Okay. The next card that I want to talk about on my list is Platinum Angel, and I really wanted to talk about Platinum Angel in this video because, I feel like I was not the type of person who cast magic cards like this, and I'm not someone who like runs this card in all my decks or anything like that, but I do run this card in my Angel Tribal deck, and I definitely 100% think this card is worth it. I mean, obviously, even if you're not building Angel Tribal, you can run this card in like an artifact deck. You can run this in literally anything. It's like colorless, which is so great, and man, I just like really like this card. This card just like gets me out of situations. Like, I was playing Angels, like this was like weeks ago, but I was playing Angels and then I planner portaled and I really didn't have like any outs because all my board wipes were like things that went into my hand. But Platinum Angel was like the thing. It didn't end up winning me the game, but like it could have definitely won me the game. Like, if I if someone just didn't have like a removal spell for it. But anyways, this with Abson's really good because obviously it's indestructible, which is just like really good, because then people are like, I don't know how to remove your Platinum Angel, and it's like, well, you really can't. So anyways, I really enjoyed this card. I definitely think this card is worth the money. I think it's like about a couple dollars, and it's just like a really good card to like have. You can kind of put it in everything, and I feel like this card too is like, if you decide to like have it in your decks and you decide like going for this kind of card is really not your jam, people will definitely trade for this card, which I think is definitely something that's important to know when you are spending a little bit more on the money. If you don't decide to run that card later on, you decide to trade it or sell it, you know, it definitely has sellability. I just totally made up that word, but like you can definitely, you know, sell it back or whatnot. Okay, the next card is Homeward Path, and you know something, I was kind of someone who, like, I don't have this card in, like, a lot of my decks, but I run this card in Avacyn because people will definitely want to take Avacyn, and I feel like that's definitely something, and I think if you're in a playgroup where people are taking control of things, you have a lot of blue mages that are definitely, like, doing those sorts of things in your playgroup, I think having a Homeward Path is definitely a really solid inclusion in your deck, because then everyone just gains control of the things, so you definitely can be political card with this card too. If someone, you know, decides to take one of your other opponent's things, you can definitely be political and say, hey, I'll, you know, activate my Homeward Path, and when you're not doing anything with it, you know, it is 1 mana. So I really like this card in Avacyn. I think this card works in decks where people are really going to take your commander rather than destroying it, because Avacyn is really hard to destroy because you can't destroy her, you know, you have to like exile her or have her sacrificed or anything like that. But and again, I don't think you need to run out and put this in every deck, that's not what I'm saying, but I think if you're playing in a commander game and you notice that someone is doing that a lot to your commander specifically, I think Homeward Path is a solid inclusion. This card is not very expensive, but basically because it's been reprinted recently, but I did still want to throw it in here because I personally really love this card, and that is Coarser of Kruphix. This is definitely like in my top list of like 5 favorite green creatures, like hands down. I run this card in like basically everything. And again, you know, some people splurging on a $2-3 card, you know, like when all your other cards are cents, like, is this card worth it? Yeah, Course of Kruphix is definitely worth it. First off, you play with the top card of your library revealed. Sometimes can hurt you, but it's not really a big deal. One thing I found is most people, if you like have a card in your hand and you like don't cast it for multiple turns, people like forget about it. Unless it's like an unforgettable spell, like most people will like forget about it. You know what I mean? You may play, so you do not have to, but I don't see why you wouldn't. You may play the top of card of your library if it's a land, so you get that little bit of card advantage, and when a land ETBs, you gain a life. Like, there's so many times in decks where I don't run, like, hardly any life gain. Of course, there's, like, one of my only few things. That's not really why I run this card. I run it because, again, of the little bit of advantage. I like actually having that sort of, like, not scry. I like knowing what's on top of my library. I just think I really like having access to that sort of information. And otherwise, I really love this card. Okay, the next card, this is a funny one, which is Torment of Hailfire. Okay, this card is like hilarious. Like, I don't think this card is like you need it in every sort of black deck, but I just think this card is like honestly hilarious. I run this card in Mugus, and I remember like when I saw this card, I was like, I need this immediately in Mugus, because this card at like late stages of the EDH game is like hilarious. Like, this is just a funny, like, dumb commander card, and I just love it. So repeat the following process X times, so you can just dump like whatever amount of mana you want into this card. Each opponent loses 3 life unless they sack a non-land permanent or discard a card. Like, this card just like does everything. It just puts people in this position where they just like don't want to be. Again, you cast this card at really late stages of the game for like 10, and there's really nothing better than casting a Torment of Hailfire. So truthfully, this card is on the list because it's just a fun magic card. Do you need it in everything? No. It doesn't necessarily, it might not do what exactly you want it to, so I wouldn't say this necessarily replaces a board wipe. It definitely can, and it can it can be a board wipe, but not all the time. It can kind of, has that element where they can lose life or they can discard cards, which all those things are really good. So overall, really, really enjoy Torment of Hailfire. It's just a fun commander card, okay? Okay, the next card on this list is Anointed Procession, and I am really happy that we got the token, like this version of this card in white, because I do run this card in lila, and I'm really psyched that this card got printed, because normally I feel like this is a very green-esque effect, so I was excited to see it in a different color combination, and I think it works super well. It is only things under your control. It's only 4 mana, which I really like, and you just get double tokens. There's not a whole lot to say about this card, but if you are running a token strategy deck, I would highly, highly recommend getting Anointed Procession. It is definitely worth the money. I feel like this card's only ever been printed once, so that might be why it's a little bit more expensive. Hopefully this card gets a reprint, because I think this would be a great card to be reprinted, but overall, this card is just so incredibly strong. There's really not a whole lot to say about the ability. It's just, if you're building a token strategy, this is a must-have. Just like, you know, and this is one of those cards that, like, over time, when your tokens just get out of hand, like, people are like, wow, I should have removed that card, like, 5 turns ago, you know? One of those cards that it's an immediate threat, but if people don't deal with it, it definitely comes back to hurt them later on. Okay, the next card is Valukut, the Molten Pinnacle. I just love, like, the name of this card, like, I don't know, it just makes me really happy. So, for me, if you're running, I think Valukut belongs, to be honest, in 2 Magic decks. The first is a mono red deck, because you're running a ton of mountains. The second is Omnath, Locus of Rage, which is like a lands type deck, or I guess like another land type deck, but I think Omnath is the only one I'm thinking of in that color combination, or maybe red and something else lands, but anyways, Valukut is super, super good. I run this in my Omnath deck, and I love it because just like, Valukut's like one of those cards that, like, you will play Valukut and you will have like 2 mountains and people are like, we need to remove Valukut. And it's like, dude, I have 2 mountains, which is hilarious. So, people are definitely really like, they want this card off the table. But not necessarily everyone has that sort of land disruption. You know, not necessarily everyone has that sort of tool in their tool belt. So you can definitely get away with running Valukut if your playgroup is one of those. My playgroup does not run a ton of land disruption. I run a couple, like I run a handful. I might run like 1 or 2 in like every one of my commander decks. But anyways, you just lightning bolt people. And like this with like a Boundless Realms is just like a really bad time for everyone, a really great time for you, and just like overall, it just lightning bolts people to death. It's a great card. And it does say target creature or player, so you can, you know, vary up the damage, so great card. Okay, the next card, and I feel like I really need to give an explanation about this card because I do not think this card belongs in every commander deck, so I just want to be extremely clear here. And I want to talk about Exploration. This card is recently, maybe this card's always been expensive. I get this and Burgeoning confused all the time. I mean, they're like basically the same thing. They're not the same thing, but like in my head, they're like a very similar effect. Again, I want to be extremely clear about what decks I think this card needs is a not the right word, could be played in. I think this card only belongs in decks where you're playing a ton of lands. I don't think if you're playing just a regular deck that has green in it, like, you don't need this card. I just want to make that really clear. Where Exploration fits extremely well is an Omnath, Locus of Rage deck. Any type of deck where you're playing multiple lands. What is the, oh my god, there's like the tri-colored commander that like does things with lands. I can't think of it off the top of my head. But anyways, Exploration, super good card. The thing is about Exploration though, and I do want to talk about like the like downside I would say to like this card, is that it doesn't, you can't get card advantage with this card. It is only 1 mana, so realistically, like, that's fine. You can play this early game, and you do get a lot of advantage of this. It is a dead draw later on, or it can be a dead draw. Most of the time it is. But getting the chance to play additional lands for a deck like Omnath, just, it works extremely well in those sorts of instances. And, yeah, I just, like, again, it fits in that specific type of lands shell. Other than that, I don't think you need to splurge, but if you are playing an Omnath deck, I would definitely recommend this card. Okay, the next card is Wurmcoil Engine. Now, my thoughts behind Wurmcoil Engine, I think, is, again, and I think this does belong in, like, the right type of deck. I think if you're playing, like, an artifact-y sort of deck, you can definitely get away with, you know, running a lot of, like, there's definitely a lot of really good budget, you know, artifact cards that you can definitely get away with. Wurmcoil Engine, I think, is a good card to splurge on, but I think my thought process behind this is I run this card in Teysa, because in Teysa, it's just incredibly strong. It's, on its own, is a 6/6 Death Tester's Lifelinker, which honestly no one wants to deal with. The only really good way to deal with this card is to, like, exile it, but destroying it is, or having it block, or having it attack and die, or something like that, and it does die, you get the 3/3 that's got Death Touch, and you have the 3/3 that has lifelink. Now in Teysa, this is just incredibly strong because you get double of those triggers. So I guess what I'm trying to say about this card is I really love this in Teysa. I think if you have a Teysa commander deck, I think she Wurmcoil Engine belongs, you know, it could be a she, you know, whatever. It's a worm, but anyways, I think Wurmcoil Engine could do really well in a deck like Teysa, or a deck where you like recur things, or like tokens matter, or things like that. Or maybe you just have like a Duretti commander deck and you're just looking for a cool artifact. Wurmcoil is a great card. And the last card, and I feel like, is Enlightened Tutor, and I feel like, to be honest, I think if you're ever like, wow, do I splurge and get this tutor, like, yes. I think tutors are just one of those cards that I just think, like, if you're, like, ever on the fence of, like, oh, should I get this card? I would say yes. I feel like there's never a time where I'm like, do I really want to spend this mana on a tutor? Like, yes, I have zero problem spending money on cards like this, because they just give you, they just put you in a place that you just want to be. Like, I love getting access to just anything that I need. Like, I'm a huge fan of that. I run a ton of tutors in Tasigur, and I run Enlightened Tutor in Alila, and I'm just never mad about it. Like, I just always love having this. This card is a little bit more limited. It does only say artifact or enchantment, but honestly, it's 1 mana. And again, I think if you're running a lot of artifacts and enchantments, Enlightened Tutor definitely has a place in your deck. So it's definitely a really solid card, and I like it a lot. So anyways, that is it. Those were 10 additional cards that I think are worth the money. Again, I try to talk about these cards in specific situations and in specific decks, and in decks where I utilize these cards, or decks I think these cards would work well in, because to be honest, some of these, you don't need to spend like money on an exploration if you just have a casual green deck, like where you're not getting a ton of lands. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But I think it's important to like talk about these cards and like the angles, and like how the angle like in which I view it, and like where I think this card would really fit, because I think that's like really important if you're choosing to, should I buy this card or should I not? So anyways, that is it for 10 additional cards that are worth the money. Check out my other 4 parts if you have not already seen them in the down bar below. Like this video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to my channel if you're not already, and I'll catch you guys in my next one. Bye.